Welcome to the Agents of Innovation podcast, where we feature conversations with entrepreneurs, philanthropists, and artists.
Welcome back to the Agents of Innovation podcast. I'm your host, Francisco Gonzalez, and we are here in the Riviera Beach Marina District, really close to West Palm Beach, a real up-and-coming area in Palm Beach County. If you've ever taken a cruise or have thought about taking a cruise, we're just a few blocks up from the port of Palm Beach. And I'm sitting here with Ryan Doyle, the founder and general manager of Doyle Marine Management. Ryan, welcome to the Agents of Innovation podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we're glad to have you. And just a quick note to our listeners: if you are listening to this, the Agents of Innovation podcast, whatever platform you like to listen on, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you like to listen, we encourage you to subscribe to the podcast. So make sure that you are able to be the first to know about new episodes when they come out. We've now had over 165 entrepreneurs featured on the Agents of Innovation podcast. So you can go back and listen to some of the other ones, or march your way forward and listen to the new ones as they come along. But if you're also just listening to this, you should tune in on YouTube. So just go to YouTube, type in Agents of Innovation Podcast in the search bar, and you're going to see Ryan and I here on this beautiful boat in the Riviera Beach Marine District. It's being repaired. We're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But, you know, the Agents of Innovation Podcast, we've been doing this for about a decade now. But 4 years ago, I launched the Fearless Journeys community. And that is a community that really helps people, build a world-class network while also strengthening their entrepreneurial mindset. We connect with so many innovators, including more than 50 featured innovators who have been previous guests on the Agents of Innovation podcast. We do some online coaching sessions. We also do some in-person meetups. We've done great dinners in cities like Miami, Palm Beach, Atlanta, Denver, Tampa, Orlando, all across the country. But we've also taken some exciting group trips all around the world, including to the Dominican Republic, which we were there earlier this year in February of 2025. And we actually partnered with a great cigar brand, which is actually the brand I'm smoking right now, Don Doroteo. We were there visiting their farms. We also got to see some other cigar factories like the legendary La Aurora cigar factory, the oldest cigar factory in the Dominican Republic. Got to see Christopher Columbus's first home in the Americas. And even one of the first churches, the site of one of the first churches in the Americas, Christian churches, Catholic churches. And then we spent some time on the beach as well. So it was a really fun and fantastic trip. And I learned that the owners of Don Doroteo also owned this boat that we're sitting on. This boat is called the Amigo. So it looks a lot like Ernest Hemingway's boat, the Pilar, which the Pilar is, really remains the most celebrated vessel of Ernest Hemingway's Cuban years. And that boat is now permanently on display in Havana at Hemingway's home there called Finca Vieja. And, I was actually there about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, in January of 2024. And it was beautiful. It was sitting up on the boat. It's basically a museum piece now. But this boat, the Amigo, which is what we're on, is a sister model to the Pilar. And it's being restored here in Riviera Beach by the man I'm sitting next to here, Ryan Doyle. And as I mentioned, it's owned by the same team that owns the cigars we're smoking today, Don Doroteo. And it's really, bringing some new life to a classic boat. And the Amigo is also, unlike the Pilar, the Amigo is actually being prepared to go back out on the water, allowing future generations to experience a living connection to the era that shaped Hemingway's greatest sea stories. So again, if you want to connect with us on the Fearless Journeys community for some great experiences, I encourage you to go to fearlessjourneys.org. But today we're here to talk to Ryan Doyle, as I mentioned, the founder and general manager of Doyle Marine Management. So Ryan, did I get some of that history right? What's a little bit more on the background of the Amigo and your connection to it?
You did, absolutely. So as you mentioned, Amigo is a 1937 38-foot wheeler. Pilar, which was Hemingway's boat, was a 1934 38-foot wheeler. So this is a sister ship, as you mentioned. These were made, Amigo and Pilar were made by the Wheeler Shipyard in Brooklyn, New York. These were regarded as the Cadillacs, if you will, of yachting back in that era. So in 1937, gas prices were 10 cents per gallon. And this was, again, the Cadillac of that era on the water. Pilar was basically the matriarch of modern sport fishing boats. Hemingway had the rear transom brought down a little bit to reel in the big tuna and marlin that he's famous for catching. And as you mentioned, it's said that he also wrote Old Man in the Sea, which is said Santiago, he got that character from his Cuban captain, Captain Gregorio Fuentes, as the inspiration for that character. So there's a lot of history, and being aboard Amigo just takes me, and I'm sure you, back to that nostalgia.
It does. It's funny. It's kind of a little bit of a coincidence. I brought this book here today, The Old Man of the Sea, and part of the reason I have it, and you can see it's all scribbled and everything on the front cover, because I've had this since like middle school or something. I happened to reread it earlier this year just by chance, and lo and behold, I learned about the Amigo here, the sister ship to the Pilar, which is the one that you mentioned is mostly this kind of ship and the kind of fishermen that he was out there with off the Straits of Cuba and Florida Straits. So really interesting. So Ryan, I know we're going to get into a little bit more about your backstory with boats, but first, what should people understand about classic wooden boats? And maybe you could even compare it to a lot of the more, I don't know what you would call it, plastic boats that most people are familiar with today.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I also refer to them as plastic boats, kind of, the fiberglass boats of modern day, if you will. Wooden boats, obviously, they're made out of wood, which are made out of trees, which were once living. And, each living thing has a soul. And I think that soul translates well into boats like this. So, it's a more direct affiliation, if you will, of the soul of the world and the spirits around us. It was also said in my travels through wooden boating that, these boats are brunettes in the sea of blondes. So they really stand out. I captain everything up to 100-foot yachts, and I get more thumbs up on wooden boats, wooden classics like this than I do on those. They're just captivating and takes everybody back to a simpler time.
You definitely notice it when you're out on the water, when you see a classic wooden boat. Everybody's eyes just go to it. They definitely does stand out. So if the Amigo could talk, what story would she tell today?
She's 88 years old, which is quite old for anybody, including wooden boats that are, out in the environment and getting, I don't want to say beat up daily from Florida sun and things like that, but she's doing well. I think she's happy with the direction that we want to take her to promote classic boating and just use her as a flagship of, if you will, of the fleet and that promotion.
It's weird to be sitting here in the back of a boat and we're not on the water. I can't imagine one day, hopefully we'll be on this boat on the water. Well, speaking of which, you've had a lot of time on the water, and but before we get fully into your current day, I'd like to ask you, where were you born, raised, educated? What are some of your geographical and educational roots?
Okay. I grew up on a horse farm in Connecticut.
Far away from the water?
Yeah, pretty much. It's more or less central Connecticut. I learned a lot of good values and things like that on the horse farm, and it's how I spent my summers, putting up fences and things like that. I went to Massachusetts Maritime Academy, and that's kind of where my love for the ocean stemmed from. I took a converted cargo ship as part of a sea semester over to Europe with...
This was like basically post high school?
Correct.
Yeah.
2 days after I graduated from high school, I was in Coast Guard boot camp. I was in the U.S. Coast Guard for 4 years. And 2 days after I graduated from Coast Guard boot camp, I was in orientation for Mass Maritime Academy. So, we had room inspections every day, uniform inspections, and it was structured as like a military academy. Graduated from there, and shortly thereafter got into yachting, and that's what really paved the way for...
As a captain?
So I started, as a deckhand, doing grunt work, day work, and worked my way up to engineer and then captain. Got some sea time there and learned the ropes, if you will, and worked from there.
So where did your spark for maritime first come from?
I just really liked the adventure of it, that first trip over to Europe, that as a young 18-year-old, just, I saw boating and yachting, if you will, as like a good way to have adventure. We had chefs on board and cooked our food. We had stewardesses who, this was in yachting, not at the academy, but, in yachting, the stewardesses did our laundry, chefs cooked for us. We went to work, did what we had to do to keep the boat in good shape on deck, and, went to different ports and explored places that I probably wouldn't have done otherwise.
Did you say were you in the Coast Guard or?
I was in the Coast Guard Reserves as I went to Mass Maritime Academy,
Okay.
And that's where I got more, even more involved in the maritime community and inspections of boats like this. And
So before you did that, you must have. So you had some interest in going to the Coast Guard. Was there something earlier in childhood that sparked your curiosity for boats and marine life?
yeah, I went to the Mystic Wooden Boat Show in Mystic, Connecticut, which is a
I've been to Mystic.
very cool area.
Oh,
Nice.
yeah.
And they have a lot of, wooden boats like this, and they're working on them there. Like the Amistad was being built at the
Wow.
time, the replica of the Amistad, I should say.
Yeah.
And, just like seeing all that come together, I think is where part of that idea of wooden boating and the romance of it started.
Nice. So maybe this has to do with boating. Maybe it has to do with horses. Maybe it has to do with neither. But what was your first job in life?
I was a lifeguard at Quasi Amusement Park.
Okay, so there's some water involved.
Definitely, you're right. And, there was a lot of responsibility with that. And, it was a good first job for sure.
That's awesome. What early experience shaped the captain, entrepreneur, and leader you are today?
So when I first moved down to Florida, I worked.
How long ago was that?
That was 12 years ago, maybe 14 years ago. I was working, basically whatever I could do to put food on the table. And I was working for a Canadian man who started a construction company in Fort Lauderdale. And he,
A lot of Canadians in Fort Lauderdale.
he did. He was, and he had his whole network. And he explained to me his story. He started like me, started at the bottom, and then he had it was a castle to me at the time out west in Weston, and just living well. He had a Lamborghini in the driveway, and in his French accent, he's like, "Ryan, the dream is easily obtainable," and that really stuck with me. And I was scraping by, and that's still with me today.
Easily attainable. How's it been 12, 14 years later?
That's, I don't know if it's easily obtainable, but it's definitely, I know I'm on a good path, and, every win is a win for my brand and my businesses, and, I like it.
So at what point, I don't know if it was before you got to Florida on that point or sometime after, but what point did you realize that this wasn't just a passion, but a calling, a vocation?
I think the more I immersed myself into the industry of yachting, I just found what I like to do, who I like to work for. Had great owners, great yacht owners that I worked for, and it really just led to the next step in my journey, and it worked out. It's working out very nicely.
So where was that next step?
So I started on a different classic yacht. They flew me up to the Hamptons for the summer. I worked for a private classic yacht there on an old Trumpy, and did like sunset cruises for the owner on that. He also owned a hotel on Long Island in the Hamptons, and that was like my first classic yacht experience. And we would go into different marinas, and people would just like be attracted to this boat, and it was cool to just be a part of that and extend the life.
How do you remember how big that boat was and how many people generally fit on it?
Yeah, so that was a 72-foot yacht made in 1967 for one of the first, James L. Knight was the name of the original owner for the Miami Herald.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like the history around that. And we had about 12 people on board on certain nights, if people from the hotel wanted to go cruising, and they were just also blown away by the nostalgia and soul of the boat.
That's interesting. So Ryan, you also, what do classic boats offer that modern yachts do not? I mean, you like the yachts, you just talk so nicely about them, but it also seems you're very passionate about these old modern boats.
Yeah, I see them as like an added challenge, like the varnish and bright work, to preserve that and just to keep that looking good, and just it's just an added challenge to an already challenging environment, and it's just a different level of seamanship, if you will.
That's awesome. And why is preserving maritime craftsmanship important to you and to the industry in general?
Yeah, so I see myself as like a steward of these wooden boats. I think at 88 years old, as Amigo is, like, I'm a steward in her chapter. And my job I see my job is to make her better than where I found her, and just keep her life going on a good direction.
Speaking of which, how did you find her?
So
like, when I should say that I asked that in two ways. How did you like the process, but also like how was the boat, like what kind of condition was it in?
So I was doing a separate trip to St. Thomas about a year and a half ago, and I had known this boat. I knew the guy who restored this boat previous to these owners here, and tracked her down in St. Thomas. And my assistant reached out to the owners and said, I want to meet you, as speaking on my behalf. And I went down to St. Thomas, found the boat on like the other side of the island, and driving on the left-hand side of the road and things like that. Like, just that adventure in itself. And
that was a previous owner to the current ones?
That's one of the current owners.
One of the current owners.
And I basically, told them like where I'm coming from, what I have established here in the Palm Beaches for charters of classic boats. And we all connected very well, and they entrusted me to be a part of her chapters.
Nice. And the boat was in what kind of condition?
She was covered up. She had a full cover on her. I didn't go through her too much, but we've definitely made some good improvements.
It was just a first date.
Yeah. It was a first date. I didn't get to know her too well by then.
So you're also, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the owner of the Vintage Boat Club?
Correct.
Tell me a little bit, how does the Vintage Boat Club, what does it do, and how does it fit into your long-term vision?
So the Vintage Boat Club, that's my passion, or my obsession, really. Basically to promote and educate people on wooden boating through experiences and education. So the experiences would be charters, and education. I'm working on that on a separate note to educate on classic boat restoration and maintenance and things like that. So basically, wherever I travel, I find classic boats for charter, and I add them to my network for chartering out.
So that's for chartering. Do you ever, when you find boats, are you do you intend to hold them and own them, or do you also sell them to people who might be interested? I'm thinking of my friend Eric Wynn up the road here, who does vintage watches as a collector, but also as an expert who collects and then resells vintage watches that people are looking for. So when you have this name, Vintage Boat Club, I kind of got a thought about vintage watches.
Cool. Yeah, so mostly, I haven't sold any of them. I take them, I fall in love with them, I fix them up and get them to a higher level and offer them for charters. Like we have Toots over here. I've done a engagement photo shoot on there. I had a guy propose to his girlfriend on board, which was pretty cool. And just all those memories together, just add to the mystique of them. So I haven't sold them yet. That's why I started the club in the first place and just collecting right now.
By the way, for those guys out there that are looking for a nice place to propose, you might want to talk to Ryan. He's got some good experience getting you out in the water. And that would be quite a nice surprise for your future fiance. Doyle Marine Management, which is your primary business. By the way, I should mention people can find more about Vintage Boat Club at vintageboat.club. But Doyle Marine Management, what do people not see about yacht management in general, not just the classic boats, but in general, that maybe you deal with daily?
So in my fleet, if you will, of boats that I manage, I believe in quality over quantity. So I don't take like every boat that I can to manage. I'm just as discerning with the boat and the owner as they are of me for me to take care of them. I make sure that the finances are there, or the budget to take care of their boats are there.
Before you get into an agreement with them?
Correct.
Yeah.
Like I don't, my hands would be tied if I take on this boat and they're not willing to spend the money that needs to be spent to take the boat or have the boat kept at a level that it should be.
Yeah. So what other types of things kind of behind the scenes that maybe people wouldn't necessarily think about what you do?
So there's a big like project management factor of it, and organizing and organization. So I look at each boat as like its own city. There's black water systems, engines and generators to make its own power, fresh water, and there's just a lot of moving parts, and they're in a salt environment. They're constantly breaking down, and there's a lot of upkeep to make that city a smooth operation. And part of my job is so the owners don't have to worry about that, and keep it, a smooth running machine.
Yeah. So I think you kind of answered my next question, which was going to be, how does yacht management bridge the gap between dream and reality for owners? I have a friend of mine who says like to work behind the scenes that helps the owners enjoy yachting, and that's where I come in as like a white glove service to be the go between them and where they want their boat to be. So you've got people on your team here as well, that you're not the only one, I think, because I hear people back there. I met some people on the way in who are actually working on a boat. But what role do you play? I mean, you started intricately with all these different things you talk about, with the restoration, with the maintenance, repairs, and so how much do you spend yourself on some of those repairs versus like managing a company?
So I basically like figure out or find what needs to be repaired, and then if I can spend the time to get it done, I'll take care of it myself. And if not, I have a good network of trusted vendors that can take care of that on my behalf, or on the owner's, for the owner and things like that.
Now, I've got a number of friends that have boats, and I love being on boats. And a lot of times people will tell me, Francisco, you're on boats so much, why don't you buy your own boat? Which I usually answer with, well, there's a common phrase that you've heard. The best day with your boat is the first day you own it, and your second best day is the day you sell it. So people probably need, and by the way, I'll just tell people right now, the only time you'll ever in my life see me own a boat is if I'm so wealthy that I can afford to hire somebody like Ryan that does 100% of the maintenance, captains it, everything, and I probably won't get to that level to own a boat. But who knows? Dreams might come true. He manifests them. But because I don't want to have to deal, it's not just the money, it's also the time and all the different things that happen with boats, especially an old classic boat like this, right? I mean, an engine could go or anything. But then it's just the maintenance. Obviously, every time you take a boat out, like you said, you got to deal with the salt water. You got to deal with all the elements of the outdoors on the outside, but you also got to deal with all the stuff you've done to the boat on the inside while maybe you've been cooking some meals, maybe you've been sleeping, maybe, all these sorts of things. I guess bridging that gap as well. So the other side of what you've done in different parts of your life, and I'm not sure how much you spend doing now, but actually, going out there and being a captain of a boat, and what does that entail for the people that own the boat, and then also for you being in that industry?
Yeah, every time I step on a boat, I'll find something that can be improved upon or needs some work, needs some attention, and I'll put that into my my matrix of management and get the balls rolling for that. And behind the scenes, the owner may not even know that that's going on, but take care of it and get ahead of it and have good preventative maintenance plans and just to keep everything moving smoothly.
That's great. So what's the most rewarding thing about this job, but also about managing a diverse fleet?
That's a good question. Yeah, I'd say, if an owner comes in, and I have two owners that live out of state, they come in and have a great time aboard. We'll go for a cruise if they choose to, and just a thank you at the end of the trip and say, hey, the boat looks great, boat ran great. Thanks for keeping her there, and keep doing what you're doing. Like, just a simple thank you, and we're all on the good path.
So really it sounds like the reward is seeing that people can actually enjoy the boat problem free. It's a beautiful day out of the water. It's a beautiful boat. They've had very little problems, and they just thank you. They recognize you for being that support team for them.
Exactly. And like you said, I give full credit to my team, and that's I owe the thanks to them as well.
So you also so there's a few things we've mentioned here. Ryan owns a Vintage Boat Club, preserving old classic boats. He also is the founder and general manager at Doyle Marine Management, which we just went through. But also, we are actually geographically at the Admiralty Marine Center. So what makes Admiralty Marine Center different? And you're here, I should mention, I could see a lot of other, I guess you would call them marine centers for other companies near in the vicinity here in the Riviera Beach Marine District. So what makes Admiral Marine Center different?
This is my headquarters, if you will, of my yacht management company and Vintage Boat Club. Another feather in my cap of doing well and doing a great job. We have Valhalla, which is Viking's center console company, to our west right now, and then Viking themselves to our east. And I'm nestled.
When you say Viking, is this the Viking cruises that people do in Europe?
This is Viking sport fishing boats. Okay. They're made up in New Jersey, but they're a production, highly sought after production boat, and I'm right in between. I'm kind of a David and Goliath, and just pretty cool to have this as my domain here.
Yeah. Do you own this property?
I'm in a lease-to-own contract on it, and that's my endeavor within the next 3 years is to own this property.
And how long has Admiralty Marine Center been here?
About 6 months.
Oh, wow. So you're pretty new here.
Yeah, I am.
Oh, great. Well, I got you right at the beginning. This is what I like to do on the Agents of Innovation podcast. Get people at the beginning and then claim credit later when they've done so much more successful.
Looking forward to it.
So what does this yard represent to you personally?
Great question. I think it's the culmination of being a trustworthy person and getting business taken care of, and having, like, whether it's small boat owners or yacht owners bring their tenders here to get things taken care of and upgraded. It's just another feather in my cap for my services offered. And, I keep a tight ship, if you will. And, yeah,
Literally.
exactly. And, walking around, you'll see, like, things are clean. Everything has its own areas, and things are well organized and stored and well protected.
The one thing I always find interesting about being on different boats, and particularly interacting with different people who are captains of their boat, is, man, when you get into these boats, like, they're relatively very small, structures, but there's, like, every little area is so utilized so well, like every little nook and cranny where things go, where things are placed. It also seems like, based on what you were just saying and my observation here, the boatyard itself is a lot like that too.
Absolutely. Like, everything has its own place, and it's there for a reason. Underneath this bench over here is a hot water heater, and, like, our bilge dry system to keep any water in the bilge and pull it out more than a bilge pump. So just a lot of, like, multi-use areas, and just making the best out of what we have, just like business.
So I mentioned we're here in the Riviera Beach Marine Center, just north of West Palm Beach. You've been down here in South Florida about 14 years, you said?
Correct.
So what's the South Florida boating culture like, especially compared to other places you might have been, and how has it added to your business opportunities?
So I started in Fort Lauderdale, which is regarded as, like, the yachting center of the U.S. That was, I hit the ground running down there, found my way up to West Palm, and just fell in love with the culture and the area, and put my stake in the ground here. And this is, like, a good mix of northern values and South Florida living, and that's just what I call home now.
Nice. So you've also, we've talked about your business, but you've also mentioned to me some philanthropic, passions that you have as well, including potentially developing a trade school for marine skills. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So as Admiralty Marine Center got off the ground and more classic boats came under my management here, I started putting out job vacancies for shipwrights and people to work on Amigo and a couple other wooden boats that we have on site. And, just one example for Indeed.com, I put a job posting for a shipwright. I got like 104 applicants to this one job, and only like 3 of them were qualified shipwrights of what I need to get Amigo to where she needs to be. And, that was a clear indicator to me that, a lot of people love these boats and want to work on them, but they may not have the skills to do that. And historically, it's, older shipwrights that are fading out of the industry and retiring. And I see a need for shipwrights, for basically wooden boat carpenters who can do structural stuff on wooden boats. I talked to a project manager of another well-known restorer up in Rhode Island, and he said, look, I was trying to hire one of his guys. He said, I'm trying to hire 6 of them tomorrow, if you know anyone. So I was like, okay, that was another indicator.
So an indicator out there is that there's a real need for people to work on boats, but the people with the skills they don't exist.
Correct. Yeah, wooden boats specifically is what I want to focus on.
I mentioned to you and people who maybe know me and have listened to podcast many, many years ago now, my friend Michael Long, who runs Sail Future up in St. Petersburg, and I've seen him go through many iterations, including they now have a school. It's about 2 or 3 years old, called Sail Future Academy. Sail Future started as a nonprofit organization that really helped young people who were either in juvenile justice programs or they were, at-risk youth, and they would use sailing as a rehabilitative means. And anyway, it's like I said, it's gone through a lot of iterations, but the school now is open to people who are even beyond, the juvenile justice at risk population, but it still has a lot of young people in that population that go to their school. They can get a scholar. It's a private school actually, but they use the Step Up for Students scholarship program here in Florida that provides low income students from low income families, a certain amount of scholarship to go to a private school. And so there are hundreds of thousands of kids now use that to go to private schools here in Florida. It's a great program. But Michael has used it for students to go to his school. So it's a private school where the kids basically are getting the state, in a sense, to pay for it. But one of the big things that they emphasize at the school that they help train is actually marine trades. And it's great because then they bring in an old boat that maybe somebody donated for the program. And then they can help. First of all, they get, I hate to say it, but it sounds like they got free labor because the students are working on the boat, but it's also a way to train the students into all the skills. I mean, everything from fixing the air conditioning on the boat to the engines to restoring the boat, furnishing the inside. I mean, just every nook and cranny about the boat. The students learn, and then when they graduate, they've got these amazing skills. They got some certifications to go into a much needed industry, especially here in Florida. So it sounds like we need to connect you and Michael Long, just so maybe you guys can learn from each other, but also I think it's going to be really interesting to see how you develop this program here in Palm Beach County. I think there'll be a lot of young people. This is a job that AI isn't going to take away, at least not for a long, long time.
True.
So if, people are going to school for all sorts of other degrees, it might be better to go to trade school or go to the Admiralty Marine Academy as you're developing it to basically earn some skills so that they can be employed in the market.
Absolutely. I would love to talk with him and compare notes, and that's definitely what I'm shooting to accomplish here.
So how do you envision young people's lives changing through a program such as like that?
So I think that, no matter where you go on the East Coast, there's a need for trades. There's a lot of boats there, no matter the size, and you can write your own paycheck from there, and that's an esteemable vocation there, and would love to have that originate here.
So what would success look like for the first graduating class?
Good question. I would say to be motivated and to have a newfound love for the industry, and to take that into a local business, to help grow that business and to help everybody involved.
That's great. Really what we've got going on here is we've got some entrepreneurship on the water. So you, as I already mentioned, you have all these different companies you're managing. You're thinking about, a trade school of some kind in the Marines. How do you manage multiple businesses and still stay driven and still stay insane too?
Still working on that, but they all also nicely complement each other.
Sure.
And I think that's important as well. We have a boat that you heard the guys working on right now. Like, that's a new boat, but it's got a lot of varnish on it. So these guys are doing varnish, and that's an important part on these classic wooden boats. So like I said, they all complement each other, and if you can work on a boat like this, you can work on those as well, and they all wash each other's.
Would it be better for someone to start on a classic boat and then go to the vinyl boats, or does it matter?
Selfishly, I'd love for them to start on a classic boat, and then they're all similar feels for sure, similar systems and same principle.
So now that you've been an entrepreneur for a number of years, and entrepreneurs are always building or still building the next iteration of your dream in a sense. But what lesson you wish every entrepreneur knew that maybe you wish you might have known when you got started?
I would say just keep going, like small steps at a time. I lead with integrity. I'm entrusted with multi-million-dollar boats, and integrity and honesty is important. A lot of the boats, like, the owners see them maybe once a month, and my like conclusions or my direction on them is important, and they take that to frame what the next step is for them. So yeah, I'd say integrity.
Yeah. So integrity, I think that's important. I mean, because you never, you can never get that back. It's hard to get back, once you violate your own integrity, especially when that becomes visible to customers or potential customers. But it gives you a reputation that people are going to keep coming back. And I think people really undervalue that. So I'm glad you said that. Also, I love how you started with, just the something I've heard from a lot of entrepreneurs: don't give up, and also always remember things come in small steps. You have this big dream, but how can you break that down to start? What can you do today?
Absolutely.
What can you do tomorrow? Like the next day, build it upon once another. So how do you balance this passion you have with your family and business, and also potential legacy and what you're going to leave?
Yeah, it's kind of more of an obsession at this point, but I try to. It's difficult to split the time between this and family, but that's another challenge I'm working on myself. And yeah, just like this is my life here.
Yeah. Well, what do you hope people remember about this era of your life?
So like you just mentioned, like this was the starting point of this boatyard. This is a big part of it, and you're here at the beginning stages of it, and would love to see the growth as the journey goes on, and glad you're here to see that.
Yeah, it's amazing. And how did you come up with the name Admiralty Marine, and what does it represent?
So in the hierarchy of chain of command of the Navy and the Coast Guard, the Admiral is at the highest level, whether it's a one star and up, and yeah, it's just the highest level of service and power in the chain, and that's I don't know, maybe my alter ego, but definitely I like to deliver that white glove high amount of service to each project I'm involved in.
Yeah. So yeah, for those that know the the naval marine type service, yeah, maybe when they see the word admiral, right, the Admiralty, like you definitely you're the top brass in a sense, right? That's what you're shooting for. So you mentioned before all the sacrifices that you've had to put in the past, a lot of the work ethic and everything, but also currently, like, even sacrifice away from family and other things. I imagine, especially when you have to travel and take boats, you could be away from your wife. And do you have a kid?
No child.
But soon, one day. And so, being away from family, especially on days and weeks on end, that's definitely a sacrifice as well, but also just a sacrifice of maybe the long hours here at the Marine Center. What would really make all that sacrifice worth it in the end?
Yeah, I think just being like that go-to person to keep taking care of things for people and new referrals, new business, and just keep growing my name and my brands as the trajectory suggests.
That's great. So we're here on the Amigo, as we mentioned, 88-year-old vessel, and who knows how many more years this baby will go. Hopefully another 88 plus. But looking at the future of, we think of classic boats as something that came from the past, but looking at the future of the classic boating world, where do you see it heading in the next decade or so?
Good question. So the Rob Report actually just put out something within the past year or two, how classic boating has become a new, like, small niche, and people are growing more to appreciate it. And I think, like, just seeing this on the water, knowing, hey, that's a wheeler right there. And yeah, just to be the face of that industry would be great.
Yeah, it's an interesting niche, right? Because there's I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of people there are working in, that own sort of companies like this that help repair and restore boats. But how many are there out there that you can, that you know of, or that maybe you can guess the numbers? Maybe you have the numbers of other people working on classic wooden boats like this.
Yeah, I've got a good feel of the industry, mostly on the East Coast because that's my jurisdiction, if you will. I've traveled the East Coast and know the players at hand here. I'd say like a handful or so of respected and revered boatyards who specialize in classic boats. And like I mentioned before, unfortunately, like that number's dwindling. Like people are passing and retiring from the industry and things like that.
Wow, that's really interesting. So yeah, I think in any entrepreneurial venture, when you're looking at kind of what helps you stick out, what's your unique selling proposition in a sense, finding a niche in the market, and this is a real niche, but it dovetails with your passion. It's not just that doesn't sound like it's just a niche because you found the niche. It's a passion that there happens to also be you found a real niche market for.
Absolutely.
So I think that's the greatest thing when you can find where your passion intersects with what the market needs are. You're going to bring your heart into. You need to bring your heart into every entrepreneurial venture, because being an entrepreneur is super difficult. Like all the things you have to manage and go through and just try to find business and then get that business and deliver on it, execute all these sorts of things. It's very difficult. Not to mention the marketing, the advertising. I mean, all these sorts of things. So if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, you really do have to love what you do, or else why be an entrepreneur? You could just go work for somebody else and you could just hate your job all day long, right? So and just collect the paycheck. But you found something you love to do, and then now it's coupled with this niche market that when someone's got a boat, maybe they're traveling with their boat up and down the East Coast, the whole East Coast, that's like a couple thousand miles. There's only a handful of places of that they can bring it to. And I don't know how many more there are in Florida, but you're right here in the heart of boating country. And there's, by the way, do you have any numbers on this? Because I feel like in the last 5 years, particularly since the pandemic, I feel like there's just like even more boats here than ever. And I know there's different seasons. Like right now we're in the season, getting into the fall, the late fall here, where people are starting to bring their boats down here for the winter. Obviously, we have the Winterfest boat parades and all these sorts of things. But do you have any sense of the numbers of boats that might be in Florida today versus 5 or 10 years ago?
Nothing concrete, but it's absolutely growing down here. And unfortunately, they're making more boats, but they're not making more marinas per se. So that's
or more water.
Exactly. So that's a whole other aspect to the industry, and something that I also offer here for dry storage for boats and things like that.
It's funny because I spend a lot more time in Miami these days, especially running the economic club of Miami. And if you're anywhere around the Miami River or even the intracoastal waterways, man, it is jammed up with so many boats. And you see, like right now, getting into coming up here in December, this is going to be the season of Art Basel and everything, where all the super billionaires are bringing their yachts down here and everything. And so you're just seeing a crazy number of boats. Not to mention Palm Beach, right? I mean, we've got a lot of wealth here in Palm Beach. Right across here is the wealthiest zip code, I think, in the country, the island of Palm Beach, Florida. And it's just on the other side of the waterway from where we're at. And the amount of the yachts and so many different types of boats that are here is really insane. Absolutely.
And it's growing every year. The boats are getting bigger, and it's great to see.
Yeah, and they're coming down here for the winter. The boats winter as well, right? So,
exactly.
In Florida. So what role do you see your various brands playing in the future?
So with Vintage Boat Club, I'm working on systems to automate that more smoothly, like the booking process for this and other classic boats in my fleet. And Doyle Marine Management is more of like my hands-on day-to-day, boots on the ground endeavors to make sure everything's running smoothly for that fleet.
And what chapter? I feel like we're going with a book theme here. You know, we got stories where this boat has been, but now we got chapters of where you're going next. What chapter? What chapter are you hoping to write next?
Um, yeah, just like the David and Goliath, like just starting out small and working on the next level up to bring that dream to fruition. And I think we're above the infancy stage, fortunately, but just in the lower teens to in that chapter for myself and my businesses.
That's great. So, you know, we've been talking a lot about the entrepreneurship. I want to ask you some questions about the American dream. Because what does the American dream mean for you?
I'd start on the bottom and work my way up from there and make a name for myself in the industry of my choosing. And that's where we're at right now.
So there's a lot of people in the country right now who are kind of down on the American dream. I guess the question's being asked a lot. Is the American dream still possible? And I say that with this as the context. We're living in a time where the economy is rapidly shifting. During the course of our lifetime, we've seen so many disruptions to the economy, whether that's been in, the real estate boom and bust of the early 2000s. We've also seen before that, the internet, what do you call it? The .com boom and bust and boom again. Now we're in the midst of AI on the horizon. You can't go anywhere without somebody talking about AI and what AI is doing to this industry and that industry and how you should learn AI. But also how it's just evaporating jobs. Also, for many years, we've lived in a country where a lot of jobs, especially manufacturing jobs, have gone overseas. And a lot of people just say, the jobs have shored up, or like the thing I went to school for. Also, in addition, we're living in the context of so many people, I throw myself in this category as well, right? That went to college and spent a lot of money on college and maybe took out a lot of loans and have many, many years of their life just paying off their student loans. Also, it's becoming more, because you could say, unaffordable to own a home, right? Which is the real estate and home ownership has been part of the American dream. And so when I asked this question, I just, in the context of all of those things, not to mention less than 5 years ago, we just went through the pandemic where, we were shut down for many months, and some places were shut down a lot longer than Florida. But that also provided a lot of disruption to the economy. A little bit after the pandemic, we then had a lot of inflation, higher prices, less money in your pocket. So a lot of people are really have a lot of angst about, is the American dream still a thing? Is it still possible? What would you say to that?
I mean, I think no matter where you're starting, there's always a next step of what to do and what to accomplish, no matter, depending on which direction you want to go. I know that there's no better place to accomplish that than in America, fortunately, and blessed to be here. And, no matter where you're starting, there's always a next step to go in that direction, no matter the fears, kind of push those aside. And, each person has their own dream to endeavor to accomplish.
Are there some industries or areas of the economy where you might suggest people look more towards? Because, we could all dream of being Michael Jordan, but there's only one Michael Jordan, or there's only so many spots in the NBA. I might love basketball, but I'm probably never going to be in the NBA, right? Well, I'm not definitely going to be in the NBA. So, but I'm thinking of a young person, right? I mean, everybody has all these great dreams, but you kind of got to match it with what the market opportunities are. All right. So what would your advice be to somebody who maybe has a dream to do something, and how they might actually be successful in life?
Yeah, I'd say play to your strengths and move forward from there. I'm very good at talking with owners and explaining what's going on and possible options for that. So that's one of my strengths that I have put into my business to make it a success. And each person has their own strengths to work on that.
That's great. So, Ryan, if someone wants to get involved with you in any one of these areas that you've outlined, how can they best get in touch with you?
Yeah. I'd say through Instagram at DOYLEMM. That's my Instagram handle for Doyle Marine Management, or at Vintage Boat Club is my handle for Instagram for Vintage Boat Club. And I'm always on those, and always looking to expand my network and meet other people and help them accomplish their dreams as well.
Great. So I'll put those in the show notes for those looking. If you didn't catch those, Doyle Marine Management, you can find him on Instagram and reach out there. What would you like people to most take away from the conversation that we've been having today?
I'd say just keep moving forward, and remember that dream, and no matter where you're at now, just keep moving forward, because the path will open for you, as it has for me and countless other people from your readings and in my travels as well.
I was going to say, you've either read my book or gotten some of my emails, because that's my favorite phrase over the last 4 or 5 years. Keep moving forward. I think wherever people are in life, whether it's in a career or any part of their life, that they're having some good times or bad times, right? I mean, you can't just stay still, even if you're being a success. You got to just keep moving forward, because I think just the status quo, you're not going to grow as a person, but your business is not going to grow, and so even in the good times, you got to keep moving forward. But I probably first started saying that phrase thinking about people that were struggling with a lot of things, whether it was personal issues that they have, or whether it was career or life choices or things like that. I think the idea is, we all have a past. We learn from the past. We're on a boat 88 years built to go in the past, but this boat is a great example. This boat is not staying static. It's it's actually kind of funny. Unlike the Pilar in Cuba, and I was in Cuba in January of 2024, and my dad was born in Cuba, and he left when he was 7 years old, and he's never been back. But when you look at Cuba, sadly, has just been, one of the things people, I guess you could say, as a tourist, if you want to go there right now, one of the things that really, stands out is that you get to go with these old classic cars that you don't see anymore, right? And that's nice. But the reason that they have all those classic cars, because they haven't had any innovation in 60, 70 years in that country, and people are without food. There's a lot of struggles. And even the boat, right? The Ernest Hemingway passed away. What was the name of the Captain George?
Gregorio Fuentes.
Gregorio Fuentes passed away, and his home, Hemingway's home, is a beautiful home. It's huge, and it's a museum basically now. It's great. It's been preserved, but the boat is also a museum piece. But here we have the sister boat, the Amigo, in one of the most innovative places on the planet, the United States, and particularly South Florida. And here we are with you. This is your business, restoring old classic boats. And you're going to make sure that the Pilar doesn't, or I should say the Amigo, doesn't stay in the status quo as a museum piece like the Pilar. You're going to keep it moving forward and getting it back out of the water. We'll look forward to being out on the water with you in the future. And so maybe one day we'll do a Fearless Journeys experience, so people can stay tuned to that. And I just want to remind people, if you haven't yet, been to the Fearless Journeys website, go to fearlessjourneys.org, and we got a free newsletter, fearlessjourneys.substack.com, where I keep you up to date with people like Ryan. We don't just have a one-time podcast. We're gonna keep following his journey as well. So I really appreciate it. Ryan, I just wanted to give you some last words before I thank you for being on.
Yeah, I'm reminded, you spoke of the American dream. The first billionaire I worked for, he got off the boat from Sylvania with $500 in his pocket, and he started a engineering company in Cleveland, and one of his engineers invented the percolator, and which they sold to Mr. Coffee, and he just blew up from there. And that's just another example of the American dream, and what I was fortunate enough to hear that story from him and just see that come to fruition.
That's awesome. Well, Ryan is here in Riviera Beach, living the American dream and continuing to work on his American dream and build it. So, Ryan, I just want to say thank you so much for being an agent of innovation and being on the Agents of Innovation podcast.
Thanks for having me.